Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Timeline Astrology. This is Gary, and this is all about the December 2025 sidereal transits. In December, we find planets moving into Sagittarius, while the ruler of the sign, Jupiter, moves into the opposite sign, Gemini, as Saturn and Neptune both start moving forward in Pisces in a square to these planets. So we have a lot of oppositional forces, we have a lot of contrasting things going on. What that might mean for you individually and also for us all collectively is that we have been presented with a set of facts, quote unquote, of certain news media, of social media, and we are a bit sort of bombarded these days, let's face it, with that. And I read a report recently about that more and more people are posting less and less on social media. But what it essentially shows is this Jupiter and Gemini dynamic where we just don't want to hear about it anymore. We're sick of the noise. We want to go deeper and find out what is true. Because we are obviously living in an age of propaganda, of untruths, of just lots of quote unquote fake news. So basically, with this sort of dynamic going on with planets opposite Jupiter in Gemini, so that means also that the sun with the planets in Sagittarius are now invisible. They are disappearing in the rays of the sun. They're becoming combust. It's a very combustible, heated situation where we're looking for the truth. While Jupiter, on the other hand, actually becomes more visible, it becomes brighter in Gemini. So there's this kind of fight for what is true, what is right for us, what is our purpose. So individually, you'll be finding this by the end of the year into the new year. Of course, this is typically the thing anyway, with the sun moving through Sagittarius from mid December to mid-January, where we're looking for what is my purpose? Like, this is the time to ask that question, because if you don't know what your purpose is, you're not going to stick with whatever you need to do long term when then planets file into Capricorn and then Aquarius, two of Saturn signs. But if you know your purpose, in a way, it's almost like inevitable that you will just stick with whatever you need to do and fill in the blanks later on. For now, in December, it's about getting clear. And in the beginning of this, in December, as planets start to move in, and we'll see Mars move in by the 7th of December. We then see the Sun move in by the 15th. Venus then moves into Sagittarius by the 20th of December, which is the new moon in Sagittarius. And then finally, on the 29th of December, we have Mercury move in. As this happens, they are cutting out the BS, basically, cutting out all of the distractions. The first part of Sagittarius especially is ruled by, it's a lunar mansion ruled by the goddess of death and destruction. Mula is the root star sign. That's what the word means. It is the galactic center. It's about cutting to the chase and getting to the truth and getting rid of anything that is untrue. And again, with Jupiter where it is and retrograde and bright, we are searching for that. And we're only going to find that within. You're not going to find it through social media. You're not going to find it through any kind of media, even this media. If I'm telling you about this, you're not going to find it by me saying this to you. You're going to find it by you sitting with it and being silent. Jupiter is that still inner voice. When it goes retrograde, it's this need to go within and find that. By the end of the month, more especially, we see Mercury in the sign Sagittarius exchange with Jupiter in Gemini. They're in each other's signs. So that's an even more powerful expression of truth and fighting for what is true. And of course, individually, that has one connotation, but in the world at large, when we see Mars and Venus come together in Sagittarius again, this is likely warlike, because the last time Mars and Venus were conjunct in Sagittarius, exactly conjunct, is when Russia invaded Ukraine. So now we have them again conjunct, but now conjunct with the sun. Exactly. So now they're completely burnt up. Now into the new year, we're likely to see a lot of this play out in areas like Ukraine and Russia, but maybe elsewhere, because again, it's about collectively fighting for the truth. But the thing about Sagittarius is it's a subjective truth. We all have our own truths. Countries, nations have their own truths, their own purpose. Everyone feels like they're fighting it out at this time. So this is an important time to think about, what are you fighting for? What is your cause? What is your truth? What is your purpose? And leave everything else behind. It doesn't matter. All of the noise Try and cut it out. All of the distraction. Try and be very focused on what is the truth. Now, with Saturn and Neptune still conjunct, there is a kind of caveat here, of course, because it's creating so much confusion. It has created so much confusion. It's essentially a configuration of propaganda. And that's on the world stage, but even in your own life, you're probably very confused about whatever Saturn represents. The good news is Saturn is moving forward now in December. And even though it's slowly moving forward, at least it's moving forward and you can do so with your long-term plans. Whatever your long-term goals and ambitions are, you can start to move forward, even if you're not 100% clear about them. But again, if you're clear about your purpose, the long-term plan will make itself clear to you in due course. Saturn and Neptune, that continued conjunction and their exact conjunction by February shows a lot of confusion around Saturnine things, the kind of systems that you have to put in place to see it through. And the fact that planets move through Saturn signs through the beginning of the year, January, February into March, as Jupiter continues to retrograde until March 11th, there's a lot of things we have to work out yet, obviously. But again, I would say it again because it's important to recognize this. When you're ready to let go of what is not your purpose, which is what December is about, how to achieve your purpose becomes clearer. So let go of it, and you can then move on with more clarity. So let me talk about some other transits, some individual transits in December. First one I want to talk about is Mars moving into Sagittarius by December 7th. It's going into, as all the planets in Sagittarius are, a square to Saturn in Pisces. But this is, in a way, the most challenging square. Mars in a square to Saturn means that Mars is pushing against Saturn, and Saturn is pushing back against Mars. This is, in a way, the most challenging aspect, in a way, because Mars and Saturn are the two quote-unquote malefics. And when they are pitted against each other, like they are in December, as soon as it moves in December 7th, and even as it moves into Sagittarius December 7th, it's moving into this tricky juncture between Scorpio and Sagittarius, between water and fire. And it heats things up and it creates a lot of both of those issues, like water and fire. We're seeing a lot of this already, of course, with floods galore and fires and all of that. But now it's mixing up in an even more intense way and then combining with this square to Saturn. You might feel it as tension overall. You might be, again, fighting for what you believe is right, but you're going to have to fight for it. And you're going to have to think about how to focus your energy and attention, because it's all very well and good to say, I need to cut out all of this BS so that I can focus on my purpose. But then you actually have to do it because you're so probably, like we're all, enveloped in all of the social media stuff, all of the distractions, lack of attention and focus is just widespread. And then when you decide that, or you are clear about your purpose, you have to actually do it. You have to actually follow through then, which is the challenge here with Mars and Saturn square. So at the same time, though, Mars in Sagittarius, opposite to Jupiter, is a more enthused, passionate sort of fight for what you believe is right for you. Even if you feel restricted in some way with Saturn, even if you're not clear with Saturn and Neptune squaring Mars about how you're going to get there. Then we have Venus move in on December 20th on the new moon day. So we have a new moon on December 20th in Sagittarius, in this lunar mansion Mula, the root star sign at the beginning of Sagittarius, the galactic center, our core. You know, it's our core from a cosmic perspective, but more practically, it's our roots in terms of our family and ancestry. So obviously, this time of year leading up to Christmas, it's mostly what people do is they go to a family gathering. You might not see your family all year long, and then when the sun moves into Sagittarius, you then connect in with your roots again. This can be both good and bad, of course, because when you consider all these planets in Sagittarius combust or fired up with Jupiter opposite, this is not the time to get into those discussions around the dinner table that could lead to arguments, for example. This is likely that when you're fired up about what you believe is right, and they are too, everybody is, it's likely to lead to arguments. So this Venus moving into Sagittarius, it could smooth over certain things, certainly, but then you're just combining with Mars. And again, like I said, Mars and Venus were last together in Sagittarius during the Russia invasion of Ukraine. So I think to be mindful of this potential for fighting for you personally and in the world, you can't do anything about it, but we're likely to see more fighting in the world, more war. Then by December 29th, Mercury moves in, and this is in a way the most powerful, palpable planetary exchange going on right now because Mercury is literally exchanging, is swapping signs with Jupiter in Gemini at this stage and into the new year. So we're feeling enthused and more hopeful and buoyant and feeling clearer about our purpose and what is right for us right now. As always, of course, you need to be mindful moving into a new year every year of being overly enthusiastic and sort of going overboard with your plans and your dreams and expectations. That then, when planets reach Capricorn by the middle of January, the sun moves into Capricorn, and then we're like, okay, now I've hit a bit of a snag. Now my big dreams are sort of like, okay, I need to kind of, hit the ground here and think about what I can realistically achieve. And you need to kind of be aware of that come down. And if you have these kind of pie in the sky, sort of building castles in the sky sort of ideas about your life, then it could crash down. And you don't want that. So it's about keeping a balance here. So finally, I just want to go through the major lunations of the month. And I invite you to join me on my Patreon if you want to go through your sign, understand your signs. Also, every week I post more in-depth reports about all of these transits. So consider signing up at patreon.com/timeline astrology, or just go to timelineastrology.com and you'll find the links. So the first major lunation in the beginning of the month, actually, it's on December 4th, is a very powerful, potent full moon in exaltation in Taurus, in the lunar mansion called Rohini. Rohini in Vedic myth is the moon's favorite wife of all 27 wives, the 27 nakshatras. And so the moon prefers Rohini to any other. So this sounds wonderful, and it is. And in a way, it's so important to recognize what this is about, which is a balancing point between all of these scorpionic themes that have been going on of late. You might have noticed all of these things that have been uncovered, all of these secrets, all of this depth that we've been going through, and uncertainty and change as well that we've been going through in Scorpio, and how we now need this full moon in Taurus on December 4th to counteract all of that. And essentially what that means is we need a bit of fun, we need a bit of enjoyment, we need a bit of indulgence, a bit of pleasure. The lesson, however, is, and in myth it's told, that because the moon preferred Rohini to all the other wives, the moon was cursed for this and then began to wax and wane. And this is simply a story to tell us how, when we overindulge anything, we have to accept that we wax and wane. Pleasure seeking is that. It's like you enjoy something and then it's no longer enjoyable. You look forward to something and then it's done and it's over with and then you wane again. And this up and down all the time with the moon phases is what we experience all the time in our mind and our emotions. So this full moon is absolutely a positive one to indulge, to enjoy somewhat, maybe not overindulge, but it's an absolute necessary counterbalance to all of this uncertainty that's going on in the world. So absolutely leading up to that December 4th period, I would enjoy it. Just again, thinking about keeping it in balance. Then the next major lunation is on December 20th. As Venus moves into Sagittarius, we have a new moon in Sagittarius. So we have most of the planets now gathering in Sagittarius in this root star sign Mula. And this is where we're being asked to really, again, cut out the BS and get to the truth and really start from there. So December 20th, the day before the solstice on the 21st, is such an important reset, a reevaluation of what's important to us, and also a reorientation as the sun changes direction. So it's such an important new moon, I think, in the year. It's likely, again, because of the square to Saturn and all of that, and the opposition to Jupiter in Gemini, it's likely a time where we're really being forced to go within in a way and find out again what is true. What is our purpose so that we can be clear moving forward about it. So they are the transits of December 2025, the main transits at least. I could go into a lot more, for example, with the nodes, and this full moon on December 4th, squaring the nodes as Mars has in Scorpio already squared the nodes. And that creates a lot of tension in the world as well. A lot of events you could have seen with fires and floods and all of these things. What essentially that means is that the moon is at the halfway point between two eclipses. And so it really creates these quote unquote karmic events. And now the North Node is moving lunar mansions also in Aquarius. But if you'd like to learn more about all of that, you can join me on patreon.com/timeline astrology. I'd be happy to go through all of that with you. There's more of an interaction there with my patrons. And I wish you all the very best for not just December, but for Christmas if you celebrate, for the holidays, for the new year. I'll speak to you in January. And also, just to say before I leave it, that in January, I'm going to do my yearly forecasts and predictions. So I invite you to join me on January 4th. That is at 6 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will go through a 2-hour presentation of all of the main transits for 2026, the big themes that I see cropping up, including issues around this AI bubble, issues around floods and droughts, issues around war, all of these big themes that when we look at the whole year, it looks quite like a mouthful. It looks like quite a thing to deal with. And yet we have to break it down piece by piece and then digest it bit by bit throughout the year. So come join me on January 4th and we'll go through all of them as well as all the signs, sign by sign, and each month by month. If you join the live event, you'll also get a calendar for 2026, a sidereal transit calendar, which you can incorporate into your year and use to help navigate these transits. 2026 is going to be quite a year. It's going to be a year that is going to change a lot of things. And that's saying something with all the recent years that we've had. So I hope you can join me. And again, until next time, I hope you have a great December, a great month, everyone, and a happy Christmas and a happy New Year.